The world of LED, the science, the research, the innovations is changing all the time. So what we thought we knew years and years ago is evolving as we delve deeper into the science, as new things come up, as new research comes to the surface. So you will see I have an empty chair next to me, and I am super excited to welcome Bev May Sanderson back to the Pampered Wolf household, where she's going to be diving into the new innovations in LED research and what we can expect from LED devices in the future, as well as what we should be looking out for when we're looking for a new device. Welcome back to Bev. It's been quite a long time actually, hasn't it? I've been so excited to get you back in this chair because there's been so many different innovations in LED therapy since our last collaboration in 2024. You wouldn't think there was going to be that many developments in such a short space of time, because it is a short space of time, but where science is concerned, a year is actually quite a long time.
It really is.
So I am really looking forward to getting myself as well as my viewers up to speed on the new innovations where LED technology is concerned. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the science. So please tell us about the new developments, the new research, and what we need to know about LED.
The science is actually really broad. So when we talk about the science, there's a huge database out there, isn't there, that lists all the studies around lasers and LED therapy. And that just keeps growing. I mean, it's nearly 9,000 studies in that now. So I think, in the beauty industry, we tend to think of it as, it's all about skincare and it's all about hair growth, but it's not. It's really broad, because those studies might range from something like carpal tunnel syndrome right through to veterinary medicine. And if you look at how it's kind of broken down, most of the studies are around brain health, eye health, oral care. Wound healing is a massive section as well, which I think is really relevant to beauty actually, because we get from our community, customers contact us because maybe they've had a blepharoplasty or a full facelift, and they're asking about whether will red light therapy or LED therapy help with wound healing? Can I reduce scarring? Well, absolutely, it's really relevant to that as well. So that area continues to grow in terms of the studies available, which is really interesting. And of course, dermatology. I mean, there's 13 new studies published on dermatology already this year as well. So it's massive. But why don't we dip into maybe just a few studies that I think will be of particular interest to your audience?
I think that would
community.
be helpful. So let's jump in.
Yeah, there's a great one around lip fillers. There's a surprising angle for you. So, lip augmentation with hyaluronic acid fillers. It can lead to complications. We can see excessive redness, we can see swelling. So they've looked at red light therapy for reducing these symptoms and reducing downtime after having lip fillers, and found it to be really effective. And I love the breakdown because they show that the red light has an analgesic effect, and the near infrared helps reduce edema, which is swelling effectively. And then if you put the two together, that's when they get the best results. So I thought that was a great lead in, because it kind of shows that, this whole science of red light therapy is moving from the clinical sector and perhaps anti-aging benefits to post-treatment. How can we use it post-aesthetic treatments? So that's a great lead in. Another question that gets asked a lot, certainly from our community, is how do we know that these at-home LED devices are effective? Are there studies around that, or have these been through clinical trials? And there are many clinical trials that support that the at-home devices are effective, but there is a new one published this year that comes from South Korea. So I think that one definitely is worth a shout out, because it uses wavelengths that are very similar to devices that your community will be using. So it's using red at 630 nanometers and near infrared at 850 nanometers. And that particular trial is looking at efficacy and safety of at-home LED masks, and shows that it's both, because They saw an average reduction in crow's feet of 69%, above 69%. I think that's pretty damn powerful, you know?
That's worth shouting out, I think.
It really is. It really is.
69%.
69% reduction in
Wow.
periorbital wrinkles, or crow's feet as we like to call them. You know, we know that if you have consistent use of, it doesn't need to be high radiance, but just low level red light therapy at home, you can get a tremendous benefit from it.
I don't know why I'm surprised about that, because my mum has had some amazing benefits
Yes.
from red light therapy. The changes in my mum's skin for the better, the health of my mum's skin, I think is the best way to actually say it,
Yes.
has
Yeah.
changed ridiculously.
And not just your mum. You know, we see it time and time again, because we've got a before and after gallery on our website, which is real results from real customers. So we see it firsthand as well. The difference that it can make to skin tone, skin texture is incredible. So that was definitely worth a shout out. And then there's one more I think that we should probably mention, because I know this question came up before from your viewers about eye health. You know,
Definitely.
well, they were asking it from a safety perspective, weren't they?
Yes.
You know, is it safe to use this LED mask? What about my eyes? And certainly this area in terms of eye health is expanding as well. So there's a study worth noting here where they've tested various wavelengths again of red and near infrared. But it was the near infrared wavelengths that were particularly interesting to me here, because they used a whole variety. So red was 670, and then the near infrared goes to 750, 850, 950 and 810. The study actually shows the importance of the wavelength, because all of them, bar the 950, which is classified as deep near infrared, were effective in improving the retina structure and function. By the way, they also use pulse light in this study, which I love.
We'll go on to that a little bit later, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it just reinforces that pulse light is a really good delivery, way for stimulating repair. But yeah, I think the takeaway from that really is just the fact that a small change in wavelength can really impact on how effective that treatment is.
So with the increase in popularity of LED devices, we've seen lots of new devices enter the marketplace with some really interesting features. And you're not just an LED expert, you also own your own brand. So I want to get your opinion on some of these features. But before that, have you seen a noticeable shift in popularity with your LED devices?
Absolutely, definitely we have. And I would say that probably has been driven by social media, TikTok in particular. So if you take the term red light therapy, that has been searched more than 70 million times in a year on TikTok alone. I mean, that's bonkers, isn't it?
Absolutely ridiculous.
So, I know. And that has actually surpassed, traditional skincare terms when they're searching. So that really gives you an indication of the level of interest out there, which is in part, generated by TikTok and other social media platforms. And that is driving huge innovation, which I think is a great thing for the beauty and wellness space.
So we've seen brands incorporating different features like cryogenic LED masks. We've also seen sauna blankets. I want to get your take on some of these additions to those devices. Mm-hmm. So let's start with, there is a well-known UK brand that is not particularly well-known in the beauty space, but it launched an LED mask with under-eye cooling. Now, I found this really, really interesting. Mm-hmm. What's your take on it? What's the hype?
Well, I think the hype comes, or the interest comes, from the fact that it's a big household name, isn't it, in terms of the UK brand that is new into beauty tech. So it's not surprising that it's generated a lot of interest. And the concept of an LED mask that incorporates under eye cooling is certainly appealing from a marketing perspective, and it's interesting. And cooling iPads, yes, they would have a soothing effect on the skin. They potentially would help reduce puffiness in the short term, so there's credibility there. I think from a results-driven point of view, the one thing I would be aware of is that most people use LED masks for anti-aging. And one of the key areas that you want to target is the under eye area, because that's where the skin is thinnest.
Yeah.
And would, you see aging in that area first. And those cooling pads sit directly over that area. So that does reduce the benefit that you can potentially get from the LED side. So I think it's a great comfort feature. I don't think it's a results-driven feature.
So really nice and soothing and calming whilst you're actually using the device, but actually in the long term, you're not going to see as many results as you perhaps would do had they not had those cooling features.
Possibly. But, I think you have to look at where is a brand aiming. So maybe that LED mask would be better suited to a younger audience. But if you're serious about, reverse aging, then you probably would not look at that mask.
A couple of leading LED brands have started to incorporate deep near infrared within their masks for deeper light penetration. So I'm really eager to hear your thoughts and a scientific point of view on whether this works and what are the benefits, what are the drawbacks.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think to explain that best, I should probably just recap for your community, where these wavelengths sit on the spectrum, on the electromagnetic spectrum. So we know that red is a shorter wavelength than near infrared. And then beyond near infrared, you'll have infrared, and then you'll have far infrared. Only those first two, the red and the near infrared, actually trigger biostimulation. Okay, so that's when we get the benefits of collagen production. Once you get into infrared and far infrared, that's purely thermal therapy. It's a different therapy. Within the near infrared, that little tail end is the bit that is now being described as deep near infrared. So it's a marketing term. It doesn't really exist, in physics, but it's a marketing term to explain wavelengths for near infrared exist between 740 to 1400. And when you get to 950 and beyond, that's when they call it deep near infrared, just to give some perspective on that. In theory, the physics will tell you that the longer the wavelength, the deeper the penetration. In practice, that isn't always the case. The reason being that we have chromophores, we've got melanin in the skin, we've got water, we've got cytochrome C oxidase. All these things absorb water. And when you get to that 950 nanometer point, the deep near infrared, you get a sharp increase in near infrared being absorbed by bulk water, which doesn't produce any biostimulatory effect. So it actually is converted to heat energy. So some of that photonic energy is lost as heat, so you don't get the full benefit of it. And that is actually illustrated, a brand new study for 2025 that's been published on, they call it transcranial therapy, if you like, and it's looking at the penetration of some of these near-infrared wavelengths into the skull. And they used 810, which is the one that we favour in our LED belt, as you know, and then they used a 980 wavelength, which would be described as deep near-infrared, and a 1064, which is a little bit further down the spectrum, also deep near-infrared. Now, you would expect those longer wavelengths to penetrate more deeply.
Definitely.
But what happened? The 810 penetrated to 7 centimetres. The 980 and the 1064 penetrated to the lesser depth of 5 centimetres. So we can't just look at physics and say it's a longer wavelength, it will penetrate deeper. You've got to look at the biology. So it's how that wavelength interacts with tissue. If it's going to be absorbed more and converted to heat by bulk water, then you would have to adjust the dosing to get the full benefit of that. So I'm not saying that they're not useful. I'm just saying that you need to look at the broader picture, and if you are going to use it, you would need to modify the dosing for that particular wavelength to get the full benefit.
Interesting. That's really interesting because you don't really get that full picture. You just assume.
Yes.
And I definitely just assumed, but
Yes.
actually it's not always the case.
Not always the case, yeah.
There's also lots of LED wands and LED torches that have been introduced to market. What are your thoughts on those? Are they effective?
I think, they can be effective if they, let's say, if they use the right wavelength, the right output power, the right treatment time. There's so many parameters to consider. The challenge is that you've got a much smaller treatment area. So if you're using that on the skin, then you've got to consistently go over that area of the skin for a number of passes to receive the full clinically relevant dose, if you like. And that's not so easy to do. But I think, for certain applications, they are definitely beneficial. Let's say if you've got a little patch of pigmentation, or if you've got a scar that you're looking to treat, or maybe a pimple, all those things, then little targeted devices like wands and torches could be really beneficial. But I think if you are considering, whole face anti-aging, then really you would find a LED mask or an LED panel far more practical, because it's going to give you that uniform light distribution.
I definitely agree with that. I actually have an LED wand, and the only time I get it out, because I do find it quite therapeutic, but also it's very time consuming if you're wanting to do a really large area. The only time I ever get this out is if I've got a bruise, or if I've got an area of pigmentation, like you've just said, that I want to correct. And I will just use it on that area. But other than that, masks or,
But they're also quite fun just for travel, aren't they? To just pack in your holiday travel bag.
Let's talk about a subject that I know is very dear to you, pulsed light. So although Maysama isn't the only brand to incorporate pulsed light in their devices, you have leaned into it
very
a
much.
lot. It is very much part of the Maysama concept. Why do you believe in it so much? What is it? What can it do for the skin?
Pulsed LED is a distinct form of LED therapy. It's not just a delivery system. The very nature of pulse light is it's on and then it's off, it's on and then it's off. And those periods of when the light is off, those pauses are really important, because cells need periods of rest. So when the light's off, the cells have the opportunity to reset so they can be further stimulated. It's a little bit like interval training. Rather than running constantly, you perform better and for longer because you have those breaks. And that's really where pulse light comes from. But it does drive distinct benefits that are really backed up by the science studies. One of those I think we talked about in an earlier video, where we talked about the improved uptake of skincare ingredients. The pulsing has a particular effect on the cell membrane, where it makes it expand and then contract, expand and contract. And when the cell contracts, it sucks in those micronutrients surrounding the cell. So we get a better uptake of antioxidants and peptides. That increases the bioavailability of those actives that you want in your skincare. So, you get better use out of your skincare products to start with. But it's more than that, because if you understand that the cell has all these micronutrients available, that allows the cell to regenerate. So that's why we see accelerated cell regeneration with pulse light. And the more cells you have, the more collagen production you get. So that's always a good lead-in. We get better light penetration potentially with pulsed LED as well, which is really good for thicker skin and for melanin-rich skin. It's more important to drive that light deeper. We also get increased ATP production. I know you get this from LED therapy anyway, but you get more of that when you use pulse light. And the reason behind that is it's to do with the free radicals. When you're using red light therapy, you get a burst of free radicals initially, and those act as signaling molecules that then drive those processes like gene transcription. So they are an important, but they're an integral part of it. But as that stimulus continues, you kind of get this build up of free radicals. And the more they build up, they actually then start to inhibit the very processes that you want the red light to drive in the first place. So they start to inhibit cell regeneration and they start to inhibit ATP production. But when you've got the pulse light, that doesn't happen. It stays within that Goldilocks zone that is just right for longer, because the free radicals, are released and then the light goes off and they dissipate and the cell just uses up its ATP reserves, and then it's on again, you get more ATP, a few more free radicals. So it's just like a wave, and that's why you stay in that Goldilocks zone for longer. So pulse light has lots of benefits, effectively. Have you heard of entrainment? Is that something?
No.
Right, because entrainment exists in physics and in biology. And I think this is quite a nice analogy for your community. If you imagine you've got a wall of pendulum clocks, over time, they start to tick in unison, they start to synchronize. So we see that in physics, but we also see it in biology. So, things like the circadian rhythm starts to synchronize with daylight hours. Heart rate can synchronize with breathing, and they use brain entrainment where they use music to, maybe 10 hertz, music operating at 10 hertz, to then relax the brain into theta brain waves. And this is really how pulsed light works, that it basically works in harmony with the body. So it works in the cells, synchronize with the pulse, and that's why you see a better biological response.
That's blown my mind, actually.
Fabulous.
Absolutely.
That was my intention.
My mind. So I've noticed that a lot of LED brands have started spilling over into the wellness community rather than regenerating the skin, which I know they are still very much into, but a lot of it is wellness now. And I've seen this with sauna blankets and the introduction with your LEDBELT, which I absolutely love, by the way.
Thank you.
So why do you think this is important? Why should people pay attention to this?
It's for good reason, because there is a connection between skin health and wellness in general. If we treat inflammation, if we treat the gut, if we treat circulation, there are direct benefits for skin health, which I've experienced personally. If you take, our LEDBELT is designed for deep tissue, so it's moving in a slightly different direction to our Prana LED mask and chin to chest, because we use the longer wavelengths, the near infrared. So we use 2 near infrareds in the belt plus 1 red to really target that deeper tissue. We've also got the pulse light. We've also got vibration, which I think you enjoy the vibration massage. It's so really soothing. I mean, that has a really good analgesic effect. So it's fantastic for even just menstrual cramps. To top line it, we anticipated, it's designed to be used for back pain, shoulder pain, muscle recovery. I personally was very interested in it for treating gut health as well, because I have rosacea. But we've also heard from the community a lot about wound healing, which I hadn't really considered, but I'm so glad that we've used the red light and the near infrared in this device, because at one point I was thinking, do we only need to do deep tissue? But when you're looking to reduce scarring, you do want both. We had one lady who's had a tummy tuck, and she went to see her surgeon a few weeks in, post-op, and her surgeon couldn't believe her recovery. He was saying to her, you look like you're months out in your healing process. This is incredible. So she's not the only lady to use it for tummy tucks, and we've also got a gentleman who's used it for post-shoulder op as well. So the list goes on. Caesarean scars. I think, did you mention something earlier that was potentially interesting to you? Well,
if I asked if this was going to be good for anybody with stretch marks, and whether this could make stretch marks that may be 10 years old much better for the person if they are really self-conscious about showing their body with their stretch marks after maybe having children or gaining a little bit of weight. Will this improve those stretch marks?
It may help, but we can't give you a categorical answer. But I think the weight loss one is interesting. Now, our belt isn't cleared for weight loss, but I wouldn't discourage anybody from using it for weight loss, because there is so much science that backs up that red light therapy can positively impact metabolism and fat reduction. And there are studies that show reduction in hip and waist circumference as well, using red and infrared. So, the science supports that you can use it. So absolutely, why not use it if it's in your armoury?
So I know from that information, which is unreal, people will now be wondering, okay, if they now use an LED face mask, will they lose fat within their face?
Red light and near infrared is an adaptogen. So it looks at the health of the cell. And if the cell is unhealthy, if you have too many fat cells, if the tissue is unhealthy, or you have all that fat cell is holding too much fat, what it will do is restore that cell to health. You don't have that situation in facial fat pads. They don't hold too much fat, and you don't get too many of them. So it's only going to work in areas where you've got unhealthy fat or too much fat.
As we have just mentioned about the LED belt from Maysama, there are offers to be had. They are ever changing, so I will link the offer in the description box, so definitely check that out if you are interested in learning more. Whilst it's fair to say that all LED devices are made in China, not all LED devices are created equal, and I definitely know this from some of the products that I get sent week on, week out. So what should we be looking for when we are buying a device? You can get a device now for around about £100. Are you going to get the benefits? So what should we be looking for?
Firstly, I'd say check whether the brand manufactures to ISO 13485. That is the manufacturing quality standard for medical grade devices, medical devices. So that's number one. We've got ISO 13485, that's the quality standard for medical devices. We've got the safety standards like UKCA, FDA. We've got medical grade silicon. We've got the number and the distribution of the LEDs. You've got the warranty, and you've got the reviews. So if you check all of those out, then I think that you've really done your research, and you're more likely to end up with a device that you are going to use and is going to last for years, rather than something that's going to end up in a drawer after a few weeks. So that's what you'd be looking for.
And I've had some absolutely fantastic LED devices on my face, on my neck, on my chest, but I've also had some really poor ones as well, and often they don't stand out until you've used them for a while, but boy, you find that out very quickly.
The hard way sometimes.
Yes, it is.
As I did once.
Yeah. And some of them they just come and you think, it's not going to work for me. That's just terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's your checklist. Hopefully you will find that helpful, and Louisa will have put that on the screen for you, so you can take a screenshot of it and take that with you whenever you're doing your research into whatever brand and device that you're actually wanting to look into. Okay, so this is, I think, for me, the most exciting question. This is what,
no pressure then.
This is what gives me butterflies. So we've seen lots of innovation in LED therapy. We've seen lots of different products come to market. But what do you feel the future is going to look like for LED in 2025 and beyond? What can we expect to see?
Okay.
And this is exciting for me, so please don't let me down.
It is, but obviously we can't give too much away at the same time, Gemma. So.
Okay, all right, okay.
But I'll do my best to sort of give you from a market perspective what's going on. So I think it is a really exciting time for LED therapy and changes in the marketplace. So if we look at, obviously I spend a lot of time looking at the science, but we also look at market trends, where is LED therapy going? And there has been a change from, initially it was more about panels, and now the mask sector is definitely outgrowing the panel sector, which is at least in the UK. So that's very interesting to see. But it doesn't surprise me in two ways. One, because I think social media has a huge impact. So, when the masks are so much more Instagrammable, aren't they, than sitting in front of a panel. So that will clearly drive interest. But also because masks are contact LED. And from a science perspective, contact LED does give the edge because you need those LEDs touching your skin for better light delivery. So the market trends will tell you that the growth area will be more in contact LED than distant panels. So that's quite interesting. But the innovation, we're already starting to see, huge innovation in that mask sector alone, just new materials being used, like new liquid silicone that allows 3D contouring, new eco materials, which will be interesting to many. So that's exciting. I think, again, coming back to those reputable brands, what they're looking at really is this better delivery of light. So that will come from optical design, looking at things as broad as distribution of LEDs down to something as specific as the optical design, the beam angle, if you like, that gives you even better light penetration. So we'll see more of getting into the weeds with the design from those bigger, better brands. I think we'll see more handheld devices. Again, partly because of social media, because everybody just loves something they can pick up and lights up, But that will drive more targeted LEDs. So that might be for hands, it might be for neck. It doesn't just have to be the face area, it'll be other parts of the body, which I think will be an interesting trend to evolve. And the devices will get smarter. So what I'm quite excited about is this kind of integration of app development with LED, because that allows you really to be skin intelligent. You can sort of look at skin and you can say, well, you need this. And for myself, we're very interested in protocols. And I do think the industry, in general, within the red light therapy market is interested in, well, what protocol would you want for pigmentation? What protocol would you want to treat acne? So it's not just one size fits all. And with smarter tech, you potentially can drive that faster and more accurately. So I think that we can really look forward to smarter, more personalised, more targeted LED treatments. Would that sum it up for you?
That's so excited. See, this really does thrill me, because I think there is a bit of a block where LED is concerned, that everybody thinks, if I use it for this long, everybody's going to get the same results, and that's just not the case, because everybody needs different things. So with that smarter technology addition, that's very, very
we
exciting.
are starting to see that emerge now, and I think that it will continue to evolve over the next 3 to 5 years. That you won't see an instant like, everybody's got an app. Not every brand can invest 100,000 to develop an app. So, it'll take time, but I think it's an interesting direction it's going in. But also I think there'll be some developments in pulsing as well, new configurations, new combinations. Very much like if you look back, Gemma, you'll remember that there was a time when people were not using skincare with LED. That changed, didn't it?
Yeah.
I think a lot more people will start to use pulse in LED as well.
Oh, see, you've got a cheeky smile now, and I know you can't divulge too much information about what is on the horizon for Maysama.
Not yet,
but we sit on the edge of our seats. If you are wanting to check out the Maysama website, I will link all of the details with my offer code if you want in a slight discount on anything that you see on there in the description box for you. It's just a wealth of knowledge on your website, whether you're just wanting a little bit of information or whether you're wanting to look at devices and skincare. It's all there for you to peruse. So I will link all the information down below for you. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
I always enjoy you being next to me. It's all falling
Likewise.
apart. It's really good that we're actually about to finish and go and get some food. I think that's what I'm lacking. Thank you so much for coming again. I know everybody appreciates you being here. I know that the videos that we've done in the past have done incredibly well because they're just full of really good advice and knowledge from an expert that just lives and breathes LED.
Thank you so much. I mean, you know that we are as passionate about the education as we are about the beauty tech. And so I hope that you know, just trickles down, really.
I think it definitely does. And I speak for everybody here. Thank you so much for coming all this way and sitting next to me again. I really am excited what you're going to bring out next.
Yay.
So please don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments section and hope to see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.
Bye.